first tutorial video is we're going to talk about form to keep you able to work, okay, and not feeling achy and not ruining yourself with repetitious work. We're going to talk specific about technique, the first basic techniques you're going to learn, and we're going to do general guidelines of your feet, an overview of the session, how the session goes. So form, think 90-degree angles. Your neck is long, your shoulders are down, your shoulders are above your hips, your knees are above your ankles. Okay, so you're just a series of 90-degree angles. All right, next, keep in mind your hands. You bend at the first knuckle. If you're a texter or a video game person, you're set. Otherwise, and it is going to feel weird when you start, and that's fine. Don't even worry about it. Just keep doing it. It's all about repetition. But you are always bending at this first knuckle. You don't want your finger straight, your thumb straight. You don't want your finger straight. You always want the bend here, and you want that bend there. Okay. This is your motion and a firm pressure. The depth comes from your other hand. So we have two hands, right? And we use them two different ways. You have your supporting hand and you have your working hand. And they can switch back and forth. Your supporting hand has a job. It is to support the foot. Okay, so it supports the foot so that as you're walking and moving on this side, it's not just moving all over the place. Okay, it's also for protection. So you have your supporting hand. This is your working hand. If you don't have it on top of your supporting hand, you have a tendency to push in with your working hand's fingers, which can give you a skewed result if somebody says, oh, that feels a little tender. So you think it's where you're thumb walking, but it's really where your fingers are jamming into the dorsal side of their foot. We don't want that. So you have your supporting hand that helps to protect it and lets you work without worrying about the pressure from your fingers on your working hand. Okay. And the other thing your supporting hand does is leverage. So your working hand, it's walking. It's doing the inchworm, little teeny tiny increments. Your whole goal is to work every single little microscopic inch from the ankle to the tips of the toes. So when you're walking, when you're doing finger walking, you're going in very, very, very small, tiny, 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 tiny increments. All right, so that's the job of your working hand. All right, you want a firm pressure, but it doesn't have to be deep from this hand. Okay, that's what your supporting hand is for leverage. So as you're walking, every time you take a little step, your supporting hand can push into your working hand and give you that extra depth that you're looking for without killing your fingers. Okay, so that's really important. There are times when your working hand isn't going to fit neatly over your supporting hand. When that happens, be really aware of what's going on with your working hand. So for instance, a lot of times I will finger walk on the spinal reflex. So my thumb of my working hand is supporting the great toe while I'm working the neck reflex, but it's the flat of my thumb. I'm not pushing into it, I'm just kind of sitting there. All right, so I'm just getting that very little bit, okay? And you'll notice that the knuckle is bent in that first knuckle on that side working. Okay, so good spot. Okay, so we have our working hand, our supporting hand, we have our knuckles bent, we have ourselves at 90-degree angles, and we are breathing. Always remember to breathe, because when you start to focus and you're thinking, what's this point? Am I doing this right? What are they feeling? You stop breathing. Remind yourself, please. You want to breathe. It's really good for you. Okay. So the next thing is techniques. The most basic techniques are thumb walking, finger walking, and the roll or the rotation. All right. So walking, whether it's finger or thumb, is to cover wide spaces. Okay, so you're just covering a lot of space. All right, this is thumb walking, finger walking, covering the whole space. I'm going very quickly. This is just an example. All right, I have the knuckle bent. I'm going in really small increments, covering a whole wide space. A lot of times you do all your fingers walking on the dorsal side. Okay, the knuckles are bent. All right, and we're covering a wide space. The roll is for the specific reflex points. So a whole session is kind of walking, walking, roll. Walk, 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 roll. This is kind of the flow of things. So I'm walking, and then, oh, here's a point. I'm going to stop and roll. All the pressure is on the very tip of your thumb or your finger, just under the nail. when you're walking, you shouldn't be able to see this spot. It should always be in contact. It hardly comes up at all. All right, and when you're rolling, it's a nice firm pressure, and you just roll. 2, 3, maybe 4 little rotations and keep going. That's going to give you insight into what's going on, and then you'll know if you've covered that or if it's something you have to go back later and check. So walking is for wide spaces, big spaces, and then you stop and roll on different points. Okay? All right, so guidelines. What is up with your feet? All right, so your feet, so remember, it's a little map of your body. So the midline, the inside edge of your foot, the medial edge of your foot, okay, that is the middle of your body. This is your spine. Imagine it divided in two, okay? That's your spine. So your big toe, when it's put together, is pretty much your face. So all of your toes, face, head, neck, all right? So when you look at your great toe, this is the middle. It splits it in half. And so things that we have two of, we have two of. Things that are split down the middle are split down the middle. So keep that in mind. So you have a mouth reflex on both great toes right along the midline. You have a nose reflex on both great toes right along the midline because they're right along the midline. Okay. Your thyroid sits in the middle. Your tonsils sit on the outside. Okay. So just think about that. Guidelines. So you have your toes, and then underneath your toes there's this shelf. All right. That shelf we call the neckline. All right. So this is your neckline. Everything above the neckline is everything that is from your neck up on your body. Okay. So this is your head, your neck, all your sinuses are in there. Everything that lives above your neck is in your toes. Okay. So the next guideline is at the just below the ball of your foot. Okay. That has two names really. You can call it the diaphragm line, and we call it that because that's where the reflex point is for your diaphragm, which is a muscle. It helps us breathe. Okay, kind of sits under the curve of your ribs. So that's your diaphragm line. It's also called the chest line, and so that marks the base, the bottom of the chest section. So this is neck to chest, and that's everything that lives in there. All right, your heart, your lungs, shoulder stuff. Okay, that's that whole section. Then the next guideline, we have the neckline, we have the chest line. The next one is the waistline. You find the waistline by running down the outside, the lateral edge of the foot, and you will find a bony protrusion. It's the bottom of your fifth metatarsal bone. So when you find that, imagine a line straight across from that. This line's important for a couple different reasons. One, it marks your waistline, so it tells you, here's your waistline, here's your chest line. Your upper arch is everything in your upper abdomen. You've got lungs, gallbladder, spleen, stomach, kidneys, your pancreas, adrenal glands, all kinds of fun stuff is in here. I call this the gushy organs because I'm fancy. So anyway, but your waistline also marks your large intestine. So what's really important is to always realize where you are, because most of the things that we do in a reflexology session, the order and direction doesn't really matter all that much. The one thing that really, really matters is the digestive tract, the order that we go in. So be aware of where your large intestine is, because you want to save that for when you want to actually do it and the direction you want to do it in. So be really aware of where the marker is for your waistline. It's the bony, and you'll feel it. You'll be able to feel it. Okay, and so imagine that line. So everything up here is from your waistline to your diaphragm or your chest line. All right, the ball of your foot is everything in your chest, and your toes is everything from the neck up. So waistline to the heel line. Okay, this is another one that has two names. It's right above your heel, so we call it the heel line, or you can call it the pelvic line because beneath it that's your whole pelvic girdle. All right, so and between your pelvic line or your heel line and your waistline, that's your intestinal tract. So the large intestine is kind of like a almost rectangle. It starts just below the actual heel line, runs up the side and straight across in that imaginary line. Then it runs down and across. Everything inside that box is your small intestine. All right, and this becomes really important when we start to work through the full session in the order of that. All right, so be aware of that waistline and where it is. pelvic line, heel line, everything down here. This is all the bones and muscles all in your pelvic region. Okay. When you're looking at the foot and you're looking at the bottom of the feet, that's your plantar aspect. Imagine yourself looking at the front of the body. You're looking somebody in the face. Okay. So that's everything on the plantar side. All right. So we have neckline, chest or diaphragm line, waistline, heel or pelvic line. Okay, so that kind of breaks things down. So if you're working along and you're kind of stuck, think, all right, where am I and where is that in my body? And that gives you a clue. So we already kind of talked about the middle section. This is the medial aspect of your feet. And that is your spine. That's all the spinal reflexes. The lateral, the outside edge, the lateral edge of your feet, that's the outside edge of your body. Shoulders, arms, knees, hips, all that kind of stuff that sits on the outside. And then the top of your feet is the dorsal side. I'd like to imagine, if my feet were a shark, that's where the dorsal fin would be, dorsal, top, okay? So that is the back of the body, okay? And so when you're working on the toes on the dorsal side, you're getting muscles in the back of the neck. This is where the reflex points are for things like teeth and jaw. When you're working the top of the foot, you're working the flat of the back, you're getting the back ribs and all the muscles there. You're also working, it's a lot of lymph work. And so generally speaking, the only other rules of direction, when you work on this portion of the feet, you're always working from the toes towards the body. Okay? And that's because we're working the lymphatic system and we want to get it moving back into where it can go and do good things. All right, we want it to go towards the body, towards the heart. Okay? The general order of a reflexology session. Now, there are a lot of different ways to do it. This is the way I teach it because it logically makes sense and it has a really nice flow. All right, so this is how we're going to learn it. All right, we work the toes first. Toes, toes. It doesn't matter if it makes sense to you to start at this pinky toe and work all the way over to this one. That's great. Me personally, I like to start in the middle, work my way over, start in the middle, work my way over. And the reason we do that is I'd like to finish one section knowing that I worked on the whole brain, all the sinuses, both eyes, both ears, and not, just half. So this is why we do it this way. So it's toes, toes, ball, ball, upper arch, the lower arch in the specific order that we'll talk about later, the heel, okay? And then you can do lateral, lateral, medial, medial, dorsal. If you happen to go medial, medial, lateral, lateral, everything is stuck, okay? Just make sure that whatever you do, you remember to do the other one. When you do this one, you remember to do the other one, and then do the dorsal side. All right, that's a general flow of the session, okay? Okay, end of that tutorial.